and the leadership of that particular locality, I am sure there has to be negotiations which took place. And if there wasn't, then there was a vacuum of leadership there. Because there's no way that you can leave the public just to fight for their justice alone there, outside. Okay. I think the leadership should have been taken their lead and making sure that, in fact, there was a negotiated formula on the way to compensation of those residents. And none, if none has been fulfilled to date, it tells you that then there was a laxity, and at least there was nobody who took the matter at whim, and then it tells you that actually Patel is like he enjoyed himself and he walked to the garden as a free person. But at this particular point in time, it is very, very painful. If the people who suffered, nobody is caring for them, including the national government. Okay. Because the national government at least is there enshrined by the people to protect the peoples and their property. Who else will do this if the national government closes its eyes and the investor is still here, okay, is not even migrated elsewhere? I am telling you that's a laxity which I believe that the leadership of the government should wake up and make sure that these people cry is being heard, and somebody will just do something to compensate them back to make their life back to normal.
Okay, well, we hope for normalcy in their lives. I mean, the wheels of justice grind, but they're grinding slow. There are numerous cases in court in regards to the Solai Dam tragedy, and some of the residents are seeking an out-of-court settlement, but little fruition in terms of developments on that angle. Make sure you grab yourself a copy to be adequately informed. A lot more has been covered on the dailies. We've just covered some of the main stories, so please grab yourself a copy of Kenya's Bold newspaper, The Standard or The Daily Nation, to be adequately informed. We take a short break right now, but when we come back, still with the gentleman in studio, we'll take a look at the latest political developments in the country. Of course, Senate is resuming its sittings today. They're set to vote on the Building Bridges Initiative bill. We'll see how that transpires, but pointers from the National Assembly members who are in the panel will be adequately interrogated. We'll talk about this and some of the issues bedeviling the ODM party as they move forward. Stay with us.
This is KTN News. Salad vegetable cooking oil is the clear-flowing secret to tasty meals. Buy 5 liters of Salad vegetable cooking oil today and get 250 grams of Zesta tomato sauce for free. Iflo Kama Salad. Salad vegetable cooking oil available in all cooking outlets countrywide.
Introducing the new salad oil with a spout for easy use. Comes packed with omega-6 and 9 and vitamin A and D, and at a price that doesn't dent your wallet.
Leo utakula nyumbani.
Salad, siri ndio hiyo.
Wholesale buyer of farm produce looking for constant and reliable supply of produce. Introducing Vuna, the wholesale marketplace for fresh produce. A joint project by Standard Group's Farm Kenya in partnership with Agid. With the Vuna Market, you can say goodbye to uncertainties of procuring produce in bulk. Vuna Market connects wholesale buyers to a network of verified farmers working through reliable bulking centers countrywide with the benefit of standard weights, measures and packaging, as well as transparent pricing for agricultural commodities that can be viewed at www.vuna.co.ke. Download the Vuna app for free today from the Google Play Store to have constant access to a consistent and transparent marketplace at the palm of your hand. And if you are a farmer looking to supply your produce at competitive prices, you can get in touch with the closest bulking center near you by emailing us on farmkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Farm Kenya, working to secure your growth.
foul.
Giselle Ansley with the drag flick from a penalty corner.
Get it across, Varney's in support as well, he might not need any of them.
We value your feedback and welcome any comments, queries, or complaints regarding our news content. You can get in touch with us on SMS 22155, call 0719 012 450, or you can send us a letter on Post Office Box 30080-00100, or deliver it to our offices at Standard Group Center, Mombasa Road, Nairobi.
The world is moving at a fast rate. It's almost like there is a fourth industrial revolution that is coming. But this revolution is not going to be about smoke and coaches. It will be about tech, convenience, and efficiency.
This is a prototype of a tracking device used for asset tracking, and it's made in Kenya.
This is a solar pump that uses solar energy for irrigation purposes.
We seek to bring you the stories of young people, providing solutions to real-time problems in our country.
Politically, of course, Kenya is really, really important. And there's very good relations between Kenya and Ireland.
Kenya for most South Sudanese is like a second home.
We're working with the Kenyan government on the political front, and we do want to strengthen that even more.
Denmark and Kenya see eye to eye on many of these issues, and we've had very strong relations with Kenya.
Where can Finland be of most use as a partner to Africa, and where can we gain in our relationship with African countries?
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express, and on this side of the show we take a look at Political Point. The news of the day, of course, the biggest has to do with what's happening in Senate today. The Senate will take a vote on the BBI bill today after the National Assembly counterparts unanimously approved the document. So how critical is this process to President Uhuru Kenyatta's succession race, and what lessons can the country draw from previous constitutional amendments that have preceded presidential transitions? Our senior political reporter, Mrimi Mwangi, explains on House of Cards.
Honorable Justin Muturi.
This was a critical milestone in the roadmap to a constitutional referendum ahead of the 2022 polls.
I vote yes.
As 235 members of the National Assembly voted to approve the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 against the 83 that rejected it and 2 that abstained.
This document is not about this individual's presidency and that individual's prime ministership, that individual's this. No. This is about all of us.
The Senate is set to take a vote this week. But why the pressure to amend the 2010 Constitution with just over 10 years into the document?
Karibu sana.
And why the interest in the process by all political guns lining up to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta? Perhaps of utmost interest to power brokers behind the Kenyatta succession battle is a reorganization of executive power with the creation of the post of Prime Minister and 2 deputies. Power play crafters of the BBI believe will remove the heat from future presidential contests by accommodating regional political interests in broader coalitions founded on the occupancy of the 5 executive posts, as the top presidential loser also heads to parliament as leader of the official opposition with a shadow cabinet.
In 2017 and post-2017 elections, the country was extremely divided. And in fact, there were parts of the country which were contemplating the possibility of seceding from this country. And whether it was idle talk or it was serious, we should never disintegrate.
When they propose that in future it will not just be the president who is being elected and MPs, it's potential prime minister and deputy prime minister, depending on the strength of the party in parliament. So that's a succession issue.
The real intent of these proposals is to expand the positions of power at the expense of citizens and to negotiate post-regime political deals.
Yet the prevailing power play is not new in Kenya. After resoundingly uprooting Independence Party KANU from power in 2002, the National Rainbow Coalition under retired President Mwai Kibaki initiated a constitutional amendment roadmap, an initiative then anchored on NAC's promise for a new constitution within 100 days in power, and which some insiders claim was to also actualize a smooth transition of power in 2007 under a power-sharing deal, which was to allegedly see Odinga ascend to a new post of prime minister and have Kibaki serve a single term as president. This elaborate plan backfired with loud accusations of betrayal, as Odinga and other rebels eventually shot down the government-sponsored draft constitution in the 2005 referendum, breeding the mistrust which, together with the bitterness of a bungled 2007 election, plunged the country into the deadly 2007-2008 post-election violence, a chapter in Kenya's political history that subsequently became a key reference point of international pressure and general domestic political consensus for constitutional change before the following elections. Yet just like classic echoes from the past, following the disputed 2017 Kenyatta re-election, climaxed by Odinga's controversial oathing ceremony, the Kenyan electorate is yet again under pressure to amend the country's supreme law. But how necessary and practical is enactment of the BBI proposals, including creation of 70 new constituencies before the August 2022 polls?
The Constitution of Kenya, however you want to look at it, requires an amendment as the society grows. I know this is not just a unique situation in Kenya. Even in America, as the society grows, the demand and the desire to bring the law into conformity with the emerging trade and development in that particular society becomes essential.
There are practical and legal problems that IBC will face. Practically, you need a little bit of time to do the delimitation. You have to conduct what we call public participation. That takes time. You also need to give space to the aspirants of the new constituency to plan.
It may not be possible to hold election in August next year. If things go the way they're going, that might be something that may be done. Maybe you can put a clause in the Constitution that allows the transition, the way they did with the 2010 Constitution.
And with the constitutional amendment fever, the fight against prospects of being in the political cold post-2022 is just as palpable among the top guns as the BBI process enters the home stretch. Murami Mwangi, KTN News, in Nairobi.
Thank you, Marimi, for that. And that story is also linked to the very latest that's being covered in the Standard. Page 16 tells us Raila hosts leaders and moves to forestall a fallout in the ODM party. Right there pictured is Siaya Senator James Orengo with Kitui Governor Charity Ngilu and her Kakamega counterpart Wycliffe Oparanya. Otiende Amolo also was met by the former Prime Minister in what was a private meeting that was not documented even by their own private press groups. Now, of course, this is meant to bring about peace and unity. And when you read on, of course, we are having Governor Ngilu saying, in our meeting with Baba, I strongly encourage the unity of purpose should prevail in ODM, especially amongst leaders who have shown great purpose in the moving this country forward. Now, with me in studio, or rather continuing on with me in studio, is Martin Owino, Member of Parliament for Ndhiwa, as well as Alex Manyasi, a governance and policy expert. We also have James Gakuya, Member of Parliament, Embakasi North. Given what's going to be happening today in Senate, what do you expect? I'll start with you, Honorable Gakuya. Do you expect a replication of what happened in Parliament?
Thank you, Trix. Nice to have you this morning. I don't think that the Senate will be of any exceptional to what transpired in the National Assembly last week. Despite that, in fact, in Senate, it seems that there's a more big fire than the fire that was at the floor of the National Assembly. This is on the area concerning the strong big wings of ODM senators, and like the likes of Senator Orengo, the likes of the Senator Omwen, and the rest of the like-minded. Actually, you realize that in the joint report, some of these members of that joint report were very categorical that there are some clauses within the BBI that are constitutional, and they highlighted those areas, and especially their element in the House was the area to do with what we call the additional 70 number of constituencies.
Yes.
And you realize that actually most of them were very bitter with the manner in which they were crafted. The biggest element in the House was not the creation of the 70 number of constituencies, but the manner in which they were slotted, the manner in which they were allocated. Because it's like the BBI authors took a job that was not their job, because jobs to do the elimination or allocation of those constituencies still lies under the Electoral Commission. So the purpose to do with the creation of 70 number squarely lies on that particular BBI committee. But that was their job was to squarely lie at that particular point. They propose about the new 70 number of constituencies, but they leave the duty to do the elimination or allocation of the same squarely to the body or that particular commission that has been entrusted by the Constitution to do the same.
Right.
So that's the big elephant. But I'm sure that, in fact, yesterday I have seen from the daily papers that actually there was a meeting between Orengo, Ngiru, and the governor of Kakamega, and probably the areas of those critical concerns were addressed. And
yes,
hopefully, maybe today, Orengo will be a man of a different thought. So let us wait the floor of the Senate. But I hope that, in fact, since Orengo is a legal advisor of Baba, I strongly believe that actually the matters yesterday was squarely to deal with today's fire. And probably that probably it may occur that he was well persuaded, Orengo was well persuaded, and probably he will change the heart today.
Okay. Now, Martin Owino, I'd like to hear your take on this situation. It was all about those 70 constituencies, but it's something that basically threatened to split the ODM party, a 16-year-old party at that. What do you make of this? And of course, what do you think it implies when it comes to the future?
First of all, I want to dispel the notion of fallout, cracks, and all this I hear in ODM. In fact, Baba is Baba because he's Baba.
What does that mean?
If you look at ODM, there is O and M, and between it, there's democracy.
Okay.
Democracy does not only refer to elections. It also refer to pointing out what you think is wrong and what you think is in inequality. In a house like ODM House, we had that privilege to point out issues. But ODM also has structures. And last show, I equated it to a team manager who is looking at the bigger outcome of the game, maybe winning or defending a trophy. And he can change players as he wish to, some from the bench, some back to the bench, some in different positions. That is what has been happening. But when we were whipped as ODM, we were to vote the party way, and that is global. That happens with all the parties. So to your question, there is no crack. I think this is just a wish list which makes headlines in the media. Our house is in order, and people can talk, and I'm happy to, you didn't see Baba going to them. They come to Baba, whether they were invited or they were, everything is fine. But for the Senate, I urge them, pass this bill, because we cannot afford as Kenyans to fight every 5 years, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Second, the inequality is what I really talked about in Parliament, which is very nice in this BBI. For example, if you allow me, in this country, we cannot afford to see some people having lots of water. They bath with hot water, drink cold water, even water their lawns. But women still trek miles for dirty water. Look at food. Some people go hungry. You can even count ribs until they go to grave. And some people have plenty to eat until leftovers are trashed. I can go on even land. 1,000 chunks of lands, and others are squatters. So what we are saying, economy and shared prosperity is in this bill.
Okay.
Pass it. Now, for the 70 counties, 70 constituencies, that can be dealt with. It's just one of the things as we push 35% to the counties. So there's no perfect document.
Okay, okay.
We can work on that later.
But you say that, but so then I'd like...
Maybe the critical point.
Yes, Honorable Gakuye.
The implementer. The BBI may be carrying a lot of goodies that can transform this country. Yes. And to the concern of my good Mheshimiwa. But do we really have those clear minds of implementing these things to the letter? Because even the current constitution have addressed most of these issues.
Right.
But we are not finding the implementation of the same.
Yes.
Don't know how magic it will be that we shall implement the BBI to the letter.
Okay, and the constitutionality of some of these elements is what the Rarieda Member of Parliament and Siaya Senator had an issue with. And I'd like Mr. Manyasi to come in on this. Honorable Owino is talking about there being a D in ODM, and that stands for democracy, and that means that everyone can actually speak out and have their opinion heard. But then we also, what happened to Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo, and we also had, Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General of that party, coming out to say, well, we have seen 30 Members of Parliament face, discipline in the past for not towing party lines. What is yet another Member of Parliament in ODM? Why is this seen as something so special? Do you think it was fair to have that Member of Parliament lose a key seat, even though he was in line, as Honorable Owino puts it, to point out something that he felt was wrong with the document?
First of all, I think being close to Baba and pointing out things that are considered wrong in the document in itself is suicidal.
Okay.
In the sense that Mheshimiwa was saying Baba is Baba because he's Baba. And therefore that
So is it Baba or democracy? I mean,
yeah, of course, Baba first, and then everything
then
else
democracy.
But in a large extent, for me, the way I'm looking at it and what's going on in ODM is I hope that, and I pray that Baba is okay and that his health is okay. And that people are not looking at succession within the party because they anticipate or they think that there is likely to be a possible succession route that will be undertaken in the near future. For me, that's how I'm looking at it, and therefore the jostling that we are seeing it's likely to be that some people may be wanting to position themselves ahead of the pack in the unlikely event that maybe Baba decides not to run, or Baba decides I am tired, or for any other reason, then that would be the case. I don't want to elaborate it more than that, but that's what I see.
Okay.
But in terms of what I have a serious problem with, and I have said this many other times, James Orengo has been very close to Baba. And to be honest, if I was Baba today, I would have removed James Orengo from being close to me 6 years ago. And I say that because in the last election, when the re-election, when Baba decided to not to run the second time, it was actually at the advice of James Orengo and others. If there's any problem in this document, in the BBI process, James Orengo is the highest ranking, if not the sole legal advisor to Baba. And therefore, it cannot be a surprise at this point in time that people are complaining about things that have gone through a process. It cannot be that someone is trying to raise aspects of a document and telling us as Kenyans that this should not have been done this way, while they have been part of that process, while they have been advisors to Baba himself. Of course, the people who did this, the biggest contention, which is the 70 constituencies, my assumption is that they knew that if you take it through the normal process and allow IEBC to distribute, chances are that the distribution may not have ended up the way it is being proposed. And therefore, you needed to lock it up. And so it needed people like Orengo to tell Baba that that is the scheme, unless, of course, Baba was the chief architect in that scheme. So the way I think is that what's happening in ODM and the BBI aspect, of course, someone was saying it is what it is. It's going to be passed in the Senate. The document will come to Kenyans. Again, it will pass. That I can predict. However, I want to tell Kenyans that I hope it's not like that aspect of that woman who was cooking stones to keep the hopes of the children alive, that something will be coming from the kitchen. I hope that's not the case.
You're hoping that the BBI would actually bear fruit. Now, Honorable Gakuya, you've heard that assertion by Mr. Manyasi about this possibly being, succession politics, people jostling to position themselves favorably in terms of perhaps them having to come up to the position and take over from Baba. What say you about that? There's also on the other side the assertion that this might just be Baba being caught up in a nomination politics within the party.
Tricks in politics, you cannot rule out most of all these dimensions. One is that at this particular point in time, we have candidature of Raila Amolo Odinga's presidential candidate, which is not clear yet, because we have been seeing timelines being postponed in most of the time by the party that always sponsor him. And those changing of cards are not clear yet whether the Bamba is still willing to contest come 2022 or not. And maybe, probably because of those different signals, that team, particular team of the ODM, including Honorable Senator Orengo, Honorable Badi, and many others. This is the high time probably. They also want to find a way on how they can step in to the shoes of Baba in case Baba will not be part of the, not be in the ballot. And probably then you cannot rule out the issues to do with what we call succession politics within the ODM.
Yes.
That's one factor. The other factor is that issue to do with Orengo. Orengo is well known as a good friend of Bamba. And it's very hard to find Orengo being on the wrong side of the Baba's will. And at this particular moment in time, I may also say that probably Bamba was also very much aware of what was clicking in the mind of Orengo, because Orengo cannot alive to such a kind of situation without have shared with Baba in my view. Because having been very close, in one way or the other, I cannot rule out that it was Orengo has already shared his mind and his thought with Baba. But in one case, you know, Baba cannot at any single point wake up and say, we are not going to go that route. So even though probably one way or the other, the element of these 70 constituencies are not, Baba is not comfortable with it.
Yes.
Because he has been on the public that, yes, most of his views were being taken care of. And in any particular kind of this particular initiative, you may not win everything. But in fact, if you win some part of it, and somebody else wins some part of it, at the middle, you meet and therefore you work together. And in that particular line is where I come in, yes, probably you may be, Orengo may not succeed in the fight to do with sharing of the 70 number of constituencies, but still, but it is very clear that actually, despite that they have lost in that particular area, they have won in many other areas within the BBI. And therefore, it is give and take. And therefore, at the end of the day, I would wish the ODM will still stand one house, and the battles within it. I am sure Baba is one of the fighter that is be able to team and bring his team together. So, and I am not sure at any time that he will leave the house to be so divided beyond the level it is. So at some point, you will find Baba working it so tremendous or so tirelessly to make sure that the ODM is more united than ever.
Okay. Now, Honorable Owino, I'd like to point out a quote here. As Deputy Party Leader of ODM, I think the wrangles going on in the party are not healthy, and we know very well that there are internal structures that can be used to solve such issues. This is a quote from Oparanya. So, you do concede that you cannot say that there are no wrangles. There's some level of infighting. And when you look at what happened to, nothing happened to Siaya Senator James Orengo, even after him voicing his displeasure with those 70 constituencies. So my question to you would be, of what importance do you think this Senator James Orengo is to the general political plans of ODM party? And perhaps how do you see him playing out in this assertion of there perhaps being some sort of jostling to position yourself in case Baba is out of the picture?
You see, what is good in all this is that when Baba plays the ball, those who are outside are kept guessing in the alleys. And we like that. I said earlier that how we are moving now would put the political novices to their edges, because they will not know what is going on.
All right. In
every house, people can disagree to agree. That is healthy. And that is democracy. That's why I said that Baba is Baba, because he's Baba of democracy. In fact, if you're looking for somebody who have been in trenches with Senator Orengo to fight for democracy and human right, those are the duo. Yes. So there's no outsiders may see it as a fight because they don't know what is cooking in the pot.
Okay.
They even may have a smell, which they can term to be another kind of item being cooked, but not that. We are okay. And I said earlier that Senator Orengo will lead our troops in the Senate to pass the BBI. ODM is as strong as possible. And we are going, in fact, watch, after BBI is when the political musical part will play. And honorable people like Kuya will not know what is going on, because right now he does not know whether Raila in the ballot or not. But I can assure you, Baba will be in the ballot. We are all trooping to make Kenya a good Kenya, and that is coming up.
Okay.
So, of course, the governor has his own view. As I said, in every house, everybody is entitled. Wrangling have not graduated to what it is being portrayed in the media. Is a talk within the household.
Okay. Now, Mr. Manyasi, the key, what key, or how vital is James Orengo to ODM party, and why, and can you envision an ODM minus James Orengo?
You know, first of all, it was unfair for you to ask Mheshimiwa what he thinks about James Orengo.
Yes.
Because he can't tell you what I will tell you.
He's a party loyalist, clearly.
So, yeah, but...
right.
But the aspect is that I think if you asked me, I would say the question should be the importance of Baba to ODM. Other than the importance of Orengo. And
no, the reason I'm asking that is because of the zero action taken against him,
yes,
despite him being a duo with the Rarieda Member of Parliament, Otiende Amolo.
Yes, and I'm actually trying to demystify the fact that, in my view, like I said initially, I actually do not think that James Orengo has done a lot of service to the ODM party, and to Baba, to be specific.
Okay.
Because in this case, it's not about ODM, but it's about Baba. And Baba has lost 2 elections, which technically people believed he won. James Orengo has been at the center of it. If it's about being a master planner, then how did ODM lose, and how did someone else end up winning the election? So if James Orengo has been at the center, if you have consistently been producing ugali that is not cooked, then what business do you have continuing cooking for ugali, and at this point in time, you're being encouraged to cook ugali for your in-laws? That's even worse, to expect that you put someone who has consistently produced bad results at the center of ensuring that the same person produces even worse results in future. Because you can take this from me. This country has moved. The generations have also moved. The people who should be in the kitchen thinking about tech-related matters, thinking about the young people and how to make sure that the youth are actually on board, are not the James Orengo of this world. My apologies to sound like I'm looking at the generational aspects of this. James Orengo should be relegated to a point where he's advising. Even on legal matters, I have a problem at this point in time because of the same BBI aspect where at this point in time he's raising issues that were supposed to have advised, would have been given to Baba from the onset, that the direction that this process is taking before it got to a point where this document was sent to counties.
Okay.
Now, even if he's unable to guide on legal matters and he's unable to make Baba president, then it's about time. You know, if Baba has lost almost 4 times, if he loses this one, that will be the last one for him to lose. It doesn't change anything to have someone else guide Baba on what he needs to do other than James Orengo.
Okay.
Because if you have attempted to do an exam 4 times and failed, the 5th time, surely, you can't insist on having the same teacher teach you on something that you have not been able to capture for 4 times.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Manyasi. Thank you for your take on this issue. Grab yourself a copy of The Standard this morning and take a look at page 16 for more details on what's happening in the ODM party. We're told Raila now meets Orengo, Ngilu and Oparanya. Francis Atwoli apparently also met the trio in an attempt to foster unity in the ODM party. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. And of course, we shall be taking a short break break. When our guests in studio were Martin Owino, Member of Parliament for Ndhiwa. We had Alex Manyasi, Governance and Policy Expert, as well as James Gakuya, who is a Member of Parliament for Embakasi North. On the other side, on Your Money, we shall have Exen Iraki, an economist, sitting tight to help us deal, or rather understand matters of the economy, what the upcoming budget readings means to the common Mwananchi, you and I, and how we shall be having to adjust to that situation. Thank you so much for staying tuned. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we shall have Your Money and international news.
This is KTN News.
Sauce Mosmos, the sauce that runs a lot slower.
Recipes with Zesta tomato sauce. In a large saucepan, melt butter and finely chopped onions, garlic and tomato paste and cook for about 5 minutes. Add Zesta tomato sauce and veggie stock and bring to boil. Fry your fish fillet until golden and well cooked through. Add the fish to the tomato sauce, turning the fish a couple of times to coat. Sprinkle with fresh parsley and serve warm.
The world is moving at a fast rate. It's almost like there is a fourth industrial revolution that is coming. But this revolution is not going to be about smoke and coaches. It will be about tech, convenience, and efficiency.
This is a prototype of a tracking device used for asset tracking, and it's made in Kenya.
This is a solar pump that uses solar energy for irrigation purposes.
We seek to bring you the stories of young people providing solutions to real-time problems in our country.
Is data the most important commodity in the world right now?
Other than water? Probably yes. I think data is more and more becoming valuable in terms of how people manage and run their businesses and how we use data, how we secure data.
When you look at your company, what percentage are women and what percentage are men?
Just by virtue of the space we're in and engineering, it tends to be more male focused and has tended to be, but we're seeing a big shift, which is fantastic.
COVID ilikam na ikashut down vitu mob, lakini bado kuna patients wengi wana need blood transfusion kama wase wako na hemophilia, yani wana kunid. Bila wewe risk ni kubwa zaidi. Cheza kama wewe, Donate blood leo. Download app ya Damu sasa kwa Google Play Store upate more info please unaweza donate na other benefits. Kumbuka kuvaa mask ukidonate blood.
Wakenya wamekuwa naulizia Baba Zero yuko wapi?
Mimi niko hapa.
I'm taking my time to enjoy the finer things in life.
Nazizi alienda wapi?
Mimi nimekuwa nafanya muziki kwa miaka 21 sasa hivi.
Kuimba ni kazi yangu, ni kipaji changu. Nimewaachia watu siasa, siingilii.
Mimi niliingia bunge tukiwa tunapata mshahara ya shilingi 10,000.
Kalembe ajui kizungu labda napewa Tanzania ambassador.
Ni kurapia kidogo ama ni sirabu?
Rap kabisa.
Business Today is a hub for small businesses. We tell the stories of success, of failure, and the lessons that we have learned from small businesses in Kenya.
Experts discuss and analyze the latest business and finance news from across the country and the world.
Because we know these matters are important to you, we take a deep dive to go to the movers and the shakers of the market to bring you matters that matter to you in a way that matters to you.
On Business Today, we not only tell you about what's happening on the local scene, we also take you to the international stage and help you connect the dots and understand what this means back home.
This is KTN News.
In the budget proposal,
welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. We want to discuss matters your money, and it's all centered on the budget policy that is set to come into effect in the next financial year, 2021-2022. And just a small recap on this, the Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani presented the 2021-2022 and medium-term budget alongside the Finance Bill 2021 to Parliament for consideration. Standing out was the 3.6 trillion shilling budget proposition, the highest so far for the country. And what are the nitty-gritties of these proposals? That's a question we'll be seeking to answer, but take a look at this report by Noah Kipkemboi.
in the budget proposal, Treasury is positive that 3.632 trillion shillings, our biggest budget thus far, will be sufficient in stimulating economic recovery and responding to the health challenges the COVID-19 pandemic has caused.
It's a concern because the higher our expenditure is, and revenues are not keeping pace, that suggests that even though the government has said plenty of times that we're going to do austerity measures, we're going to cut expenditure, the reality is that's not actually happening. And that is putting a lot of stress on the country economically, I feel.
The proposal has allocated 135.3 billion shillings on the President's Big Four agenda, covering universal healthcare, food and nutrition, manufacturing, and affordable housing.
Concern with all the infrastructure spend is that are we getting value for money in what we do? Is it, during the spend of the infrastructure, whilst it's going up, there is very little trickle down into the economy because your contractors from somewhere outside, the funding is from somewhere outside, sometimes even the labor is from somewhere outside. So who is benefiting? Kenyans are not necessarily benefiting today from that infrastructure. Once it is in place, it'll make a big difference.
To help with the economic recovery from the devastating impact of the pandemic, 26.6 billion shillings has been allocated towards the post-COVID-19 economic stimulus program at a time recovery is pegged on health.
Even in countries where vaccinations have been done, the UK, Israel, even the US today, where a big proportion of the population has already been vaccinated, not once, but even twice, the economies are starting to bounce back. So this virus is not going away, and we're going to have to do everything we can to prevent it. So, the vaccination program is going to be critical for the rest of this year, I think.
1.8 trillion shillings is going towards the executive, 37 billion shillings to parliament, and 17 billion shillings to judiciary, amidst concerns over government spending.
Government has talked severally, even the president has said, we will move to austerity measures. The reality is that we haven't. We're still spending more than we earn, and to bridge the gap, we're borrowing more. So there's wages, there's salaries, there's development, there's all sorts of things. Are we spending too much? Point one. Point two, how much of that is actually getting wasted? And by wasted, I mean there's just no accounting for where it's gone. Which leads me on to point three, which is how much of it is disappearing in corruption-type scams.
With pressure mounting on the taxman to collect more revenue, of the projected 1.8 trillion shillings of revenue the government projects to collect, over 50% is going towards servicing debt, which stood at 7.2 trillion shillings at the close of 2020.
Just got to watch for that. We've got to bring our expenditure down. I mean, I often give the analogy, just look at your own home. You look at your revenue, what your income is, and then you decide what you're going to spend. Here, the government is deciding what they want to spend and then trying to match the revenue to it. And when the economy is not at full potential, that's going to be very difficult to achieve.
Amendments have also been proposed in the Financial Bill 2021 on the Tax Procedure Act, Excise Duty Act, the VAT Act, the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act, as well as the Capital Markets Act, the Central Depositories Act, the Kenya Revenue Authority Act, the Insurance Act, and the Retirement Benefits Act to facilitate realization of the budget proposals. Under the Tax Procedures Amendment, Treasury is seeking to get powers to regulate VAT without involving Parliament.
That one is a concern to me because I've seen in the past Treasury and the KRA use regulations to try and override what is in the law. And that is not legally correct because the law is the overriding factor that you have to comply with. The regulations are only designed to make it easier to apply the law and to apply the law and give guidance on the procedures that will be followed. So that is why I think it went through Parliament for approval. I don't know whether MPs will accept this. After all, it is something that's been taken away from them.
Treasury is proposing to introduce VAT exemptions on ventilators, decongestants and supplements in order to boost the health sector by lowering costs. Geothermal, oil and mining, solar and wind energy generation supplies have also been put on the list of exempt items.
VAT was never performing the way it should. It still has some way to go, but I'm not happy that when the new VAT Act came in, we had about 30 exempt items. If you look at the list today, it's about 110, 120, something like that. So we're back into that cycle where in a few years' time, we're going to say too many exempt items. Now, the government is making, Treasury is making inroads into saying these exemptions are not needed, let's take them out. Sometimes they have the wrong effect. Sometimes, they did this last year when we got a tax reduction rate in rates, a lot of exemptions and allowances and what have you were reduced. So you're giving with one and taking with the other. You're effectively robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Treasury has also reintroduced the 20% excess duty on amounts staked or wagered in the betting industry. Noakip Kimboi, KTN News.
All right, many thanks, Noakip Kimboi, for painting a picture for us. So the big question is, how will the budget impact the common mwananchi? Is there anything in the budget for Wanjiku? And joining us to help us break down the finance bill and the budget as well, we're joined by Daktari Exen Iraki via way of Zoom. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. And we're having this discussion in the backdrop of a figure, 3.6 trillion shillings, the biggest budget we've had so far. Is it concerning, considering the widening expenditure and the dwindling revenue collection, with the government stand on pursuing fiscal austerity measures? What's your take?
I think I'm not very excited when we keep on saying this is the biggest budget ever. because every year's budget will be bigger than the previous year. So the needs of the mwananchi, the needs of the government, both county and national, will always keep on increasing. But I think the big issue we have today, as far as the budget is concerned, is that in the last 1 year, the revenues have gone down because the government, not the government, but the business are not been doing very well. So on one hand, we have a bigger budget, but we have the ability to raise revenues going down, because when businesses close because of COVID-19, when people lose jobs because of COVID-19, then we have a situation where we have more demand for revenue than the revenue available. And I think that's why if you look at the Finance Bill 2021, there's a lot of emphasis on tax reforms. So the government can correct more taxes and try and close the revenue gap. So I see that as the crux of this year's budget, closing the budget deficit.
Okay, we'll get to speak more about the budget deficit later, but I mean, many expected radical tax changes following the additional support from IMF, but a majority of the amendments we're looking at are towards strengthening the tax administration and addressing some challenges in cross-border transactions. What do you interpret this move as in the current economic climate? Is this the best move for Wanjiku, considering the taxpayers?
There is no doubt that our tax administration or tax correction system have not been very efficient. So one way to correct more taxes is to make tax correction very efficient. And if you look at the areas that are targeted, there is a deliberate effort to make it easier to correct taxes, whether it is internally or across the borders. But to get back to your question about Wanjiku, one question you should be asking is Wanjiku going to read this budget? Chances are no. Are the policymakers aware of Wanjiku's problems? I think so. But the question has always been, when you make decisions at the top level, at the budget level, at the parliament, at the executive, do they trickle down to the ordinary person? Because if you talk to Wanjiku on the streets, her biggest problem now might not be whether VAT is going down or not, or whether there are VAT exemptions or not. Wanjiku's biggest problem might be the high cost of living. Is Wanjiku able to pay rent? Is Wanjiku able to take care of her school fees? Is Wanjiku able to pay for her food? I remember yesterday I was listening to the radio as I was traveling somewhere, and every Kenyan you talked to was complaining about how do we pay the fees. So at the end of the day, when we come up with the budget, the policies we make, the decisions we make about VAT, about any tax, we should always ask to what extent are they going to affect the person at the bottom of the pyramid. One of the things that I noted about this proposal was about the stimulus package, 26-point-something billion. Compare with what we had in the first lockdown, which was about 57.6 billion. So I believe one way to make sure that Wanjiku benefits from the new budget would be to enhance this stimulus package. I think we have as many problems now as we had during the first lockdown. So I would suggest that the parliamentarians should adjust this stimulus package from 26 to about 57 or more, or something close to what we had in the first lockdown, because we need the person on the streets, Wanjiku, to also benefit from this tax or these budget proposals.
Okay, let's speak about the budget-making process. The regulations under the VAT Act and proposal under the Finance Bill that, Treasury doesn't need to go through the National Assembly one way or the other. The debate on the law and regulations around this whole important process. What's your take on Parliament's role in the budget-making process and this move by the Treasury, the latest move so far?
I think that the gentleman you were interviewing before me alluded to the fact that that might be illegal. Personally, I don't support the Minister of Finance or the Cabinet Secretary being allowed to make regulations of VAT without involving the Parliament. I think any legal profession will tell you that any taxation must be approved by the Parliament. The same way the Parliament must approve any raising of the debt ceiling. So I think that is giving too much to the Treasury Secretary. And I think the Parliament should be involved to make sure that any tax measures are debated by the Parliament, who are the representatives of the people. After all, if you give somebody discretion or the power to make a decision on taxes, we would predict that a lot of tax will be brought in. But if you involve the parliamentarians, they will debate and probably come up with the best decisions. The Constitution is very clear on public participation. And where the public does not participate, then the representatives of the public, who are MPs, should participate. So I don't support that personally.
Okay, well to note, let's see how it plays out and if the parliamentarians will accept such a move.